Ever feel like society is a beautifully wrapped present, but with some questionable gifts inside?
Hmm. I think I know where you're going with this.
That's Jean-Jacques Rousseau for you. We're diving into his greatest hits today, and let me tell you, this deep dive is rated PG.
Parental guidance.
You got it. Parental guidance suggested for some serious philosophical whiplash.
Well, his own life could be Exhibit A, honestly. This is a guy who wrote passionately about being a responsible parent, then leaves his own kids in an orphanage.
Yeah, not exactly walking the walk, is he? But that's the thing with Rousseau. Even his biggest critics,
Yeah.
they'll admit, his writing, it sparked revolutions.
It's hard to deny his impact.
So we're going in deep today, using some insightful scholarly analyses of Rousseau's life, and we'll be looking at his major works too, like The Social Contract, trying to figure out how could this one guy be so influential and, well, so contradictory.
The Rousseau paradox. He saw those contradictions, though, not as hypocrisy, but as proof that, well, humans are complicated,
We sure are.
and the societies we try to build even more so. He's basically saying, look, we crave freedom, but we also want order, we want progress, but it always comes at a cost. These tensions, they fascinated him.
And nowhere is that tension more obvious than in his idea of the general will, right? That's in The Social Contract.
Yeah, that's where things get really interesting.
Lay it on me.
Okay, so imagine a society where magically everyone's desires just naturally line up for the greater good.
Like some kind of utopian dream.
Exactly. That's the general will in a nutshell.
But knowing how people actually are, good luck getting everyone to agree on what the greater good even is.
Exactly. And Rousseau argues that the general will isn't about everyone literally getting what they want, but rather it's this reflection of what's truly best for society as a whole. Even if, some people just don't see it.
So not just like, oh, I disagree with your opinion. It's more like what I think I want and what's actually good for the whole system, even if I can't see that far ahead.
You got it. And that right there is the seed of both amazing potential and, to be honest, terrifying control.
Uh-oh, I sense a but coming.
Well, look at the French Revolution. It was fueled by these very ideas of unity and the general will from Rousseau. But they got twisted. What started as this fight for freedom, it took a dark turn. Revolutionaries justifying violence, oppression, all in the name of this quote-unquote collective good.
Which makes you wonder, was Rousseau just naive? Or is there something inherently risky about putting the general will above individual liberty?
That, my friend, is the million-dollar question. And to really get Rousseau's answer, we have to go beyond just listing off his contradictions.
Okay, so where do we go from there?
We need to understand the why, the historical context, the sheer audacity of challenging the status quo like he did.
It's funny, the more we dig into Rousseau, the more I see these contradictions.
Yeah.
And they're starting to feel less like flaws, and more like this underlying tension, this constant wrestling match he's having with himself in his work.
I see what you mean.
Like he's saying, hey, look, life's messy. People are complicated. And trying to build some perfect system, recipe for disaster.
You hit the nail on the head. Our sources highlight that instead of shying away from these messy bits, Rousseau, he runs right at them.
Headfirst into the storm.
He really does. His whole work, it becomes this study in contrasts, always pushing us to examine the gaps between those grand ideals and the reality of, well, just being human.
And these contradictions weren't just theoretical for him, were they? It's like he lived them out loud.
How so?
Well, he championed this simple life, but he's also enjoying the comforts of Paris, or praising Geneva as this, ideal republic, but choosing to live elsewhere.
Exactly. One scholar even called his collected works one extended protest against this internal conflict. Can you imagine?
It's like he saw those contradictions not as failures, but like the raw materials for his philosophy.
I like that. The raw materials.
Which brings us to, honestly, a juicy one. Rousseau, the playwright, who also believed that theater was ruining society.
Didn't he write a whole treatise on that?
He did.
He thought of theater as this artificial way of showing emotion, a distraction from, real human connection.
But he was still writing plays.
And operas. Don't forget the operas he composed.
It's like he's saying, look, this stuff might be a bad influence, but it's also how we explore what it means to be human, so deal with it.
Right. That duality is woven into everything he does. It's this push and pull between opposite forces. That's what makes his work so fascinating even today.
It's definitely what keeps us coming back.
Think about his views on music. The guy was a composer, and he criticized the French for not really getting music.
Hiding the hand that feeds you.
Like, oh, totally. But again, it's not just about being difficult. It's about getting at something deeper.
Okay, I'll listen.
Even art, something we think of as pure, transcendent even, it's still subject to social forces. Cultural forces, too.
And this is where his critique of the Enlightenment comes in.
Right. He wasn't anti-reason, anti-progress, but he saw the danger in those pursuits if they weren't rooted in compassion, in recognizing our shared humanity.
So it's like he was saying, hey, hold on a second. We can't just be out here celebrating reason and progress without acknowledging the downsides.
Exactly. There are inequalities, unintended consequences. They can be used to justify some pretty terrible things, and he knew that.
And this is where the noble savage comes in.
Exactly. That idea that humans in our natural state were inherently good, its civilization with all its rules and complexities, that corrupts us.
Whether you agree with it or not, it makes you think.
For sure. It's a powerful thought experiment.
What have we gained and what have we lost in the name of progress?
And that right there is a question that's still so relevant today.
How so?
Well, we're grappling with climate change, right? Economic inequality. Technology is advancing faster than we can keep up with. Rousseau's work, it's a reminder.
A reminder of what?
To consider all the consequences, the intended and the unintended ones. To think critically about what we value and why.
It's about asking the tough questions. Okay, so we've covered a lot of ground here. Rousseau's contradictions, his critique of progress, this idea of the general will. But what about the legacy? What impact did all this actually have?
Well, imagine dropping a philosophical bomb on a world obsessed with kings and queens and divine right, That's basically what Rousseau did when he introduced the concept of popular sovereignty.
Basically saying, hey, maybe power shouldn't come from some king who just happened to be born into it. Maybe it should come from the people.
Exactly. And that idea, radical for its time, sent shockwaves through the intellectual landscape. Our sources show how thinkers were grappling with this. Led to some, pretty wildly different interpretations.
I can imagine. So who was on board with Team Rousseau?
Well, you've got guys like Pierre Lans and Gabriel-Jacques Dodgeville. They were all about it. Saw Rousseau as this champion of democracy, a defender of the people's right to govern themselves.
The general will being a good thing then, at least for them.
Exactly. An expression of collective power. A force for positive change.
But I'm guessing not everyone was quite so thrilled with Rousseau's vision.
Oh, absolutely not. You've got someone like Louis de Bonald, for example. He argued that Rousseau's ideas, they were basically social dynamite.
Go boom.
Yeah, he thought the general will was too abstract, dangerous even. Something that would just inevitably, descend into mob rule and chaos.
So two sides of the same coin. On one hand, empowered citizens shaping their own destiny. On the other, potential for tyranny of the majority. Sounds kind of familiar, doesn't it?
Right. It's this tension that's kind of woven into democracy itself, isn't it? And it's something Rousseau forces us to confront. His legacy isn't about choosing sides.
It's about having the conversation in the first place.
Exactly. About grappling with the tough questions.
Okay, so let's bring it back down to the individual level for a second.
Right.
How did Rousseau picture personal freedom existing within a system that's governed by this powerful general will? Seems like there'd be a lot of conflict there.
Sure.
Like my desire to, say, buy a new pair of shoes versus, what's best for everyone else.
Right. And it's a delicate balance, for sure. Rousseau believed that true freedom wasn't about just getting everything you personally want.
Okay, so then what was it about?
It was about aligning yourself with this higher purpose, the collective good. By surrendering to the general will, he argued, that's how individuals achieve this more profound kind of liberty.
So it's less about me and my shoe obsession and more about recognizing that what's best for everyone might mean making some personal sacrifices along the way.
Exactly. Now, whether or not you agree with that, it's a powerful thought, isn't it? And Rousseau, he takes it even further. He contrasts this with other thinkers, people like Pufendorf, who saw sovereignty as something that, could be transferred or even alienated.
Like a commodity almost.
Yeah, but Rousseau insisted it's inalienable. It belongs to the people, inherently.
So it's not something a ruler can just grant or take away. It's just fundamentally ours.
Exactly. Now, was Rousseau's vision a utopia? Maybe, maybe not.
I get the feeling there's no easy answer to that.
Right. But his work, it forces us to ask some pretty difficult questions about the whole idea of balancing those individual desires with the needs of the many. And honestly, those questions are just as relevant today as they were centuries ago.
Which leads us to the heart of this whole deep dive. What does it all mean for us today? Right now, how can we take these, what are they, like centuries-old ideas and actually apply them to the challenges we face in the 21st century?
And that's the beauty of engaging with a thinker like Rousseau, isn't it? It's not about, having the right answer. It's about sparking new ways of thinking.
Asking better questions.
Exactly. As you go forward, think about this. Could Rousseau's general will, if we reinterpret it through a modern lens, could it offer solutions to some of the big problems we face, like climate change, wealth inequality, issues that require us to work together on a global scale? Or would trying to force a single vision of the greater good, would that just end up hurting individual liberties, leading to new forms of injustice? There are no easy answers, but just wrestling with these questions, embracing the complexity, that's how we honor the legacy of a philosopher who dared to challenge everything and imagine a totally different way of being.
And that's a wrap on our deep dive into the paradoxical world of Jean-Jacques Rousseau.
We've explored his life, contradictions and all.
And the enduring power of his ideas, especially this idea of the general will.
We've seen how those ideas sparked revolutions and continue to shape debates about individual liberty, social contracts, even the very meaning of progress itself.
So next time you're facing an impossible choice, a clash between what you want and what might be best for everyone else, remember, Jean-Jacques Rousseau, he might not have all the answers, but he will definitely give you something to think about.